Greetings, everybody who joined the ISM Mastermind cycle of discussions that are aimed at bringing business leaders and educational experts to discuss the most important topics that professionals are debating nowadays. It isn't a standalone event. It is a part of a series. As I said, 2 weeks ago, we had a great discussion on the topic of leadership. If you're interested, you can find it on Delphi TV archives. And this event is, of course, not the last one. Please follow us on social media, the ISM page, and you will find out about the future events. My name is Vytautas, and I will be your host tonight. Today, the topic is digital marketing and how to use it to hack growth. We have a lineup of extraordinary speakers from Google, from ISM, and from HTT Pool. But before I introduce them, some important information for you. We are watched on ism.zoom platform and also on Delphi TV. So greetings to all the spectators. Please be active. You can type questions to the speakers, and I will make sure to deliver the questions during the Q&A session, which will take part on the second part of this discussion, which will last in total 1 hour. So the last 15 to 20 minutes will be devoted to your questions. So as I said, be active. Very important thing, all the speakers today will represent ideas, their personal ideas, and they do not necessarily reflect the ideas or the values of the companies that they represent. So for the speakers, you feel free to say whatever you personally want. Probably you know, or if you don't know, ISM is a great place where experts and leaders are born. And if you would like to gain knowledge and expertise in the field of marketing, leadership, finance, and innovation management, there's great news for you because the early admission to ISM Master Studies have started. And it's now a very good time to think about the master studies at ISM, because if you apply now, you don't need to pay no application fee, and also you have great financing opportunities. So that if that's something that interests you, contact us via social networks or drop us an email at msc@ism.lt, and we will be happy to answer all the questions that you might have. I think everybody joined the discussion now. As I said, try to be active, try to type as many questions as possible, and if possible, also try to address them to specific speakers, if you can. And let me introduce the speakers. So we have Dr. Vatroslav Shkare, who is an associate professor at ISM and also a marketing consultant. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting the invitation and devoting your time for us. Also, we have Augusta Tamulytė, who is an ISM alumna and also associate account strategist at Google, as written on her t-shirt. Good evening, Augusta.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you as well for joining. And we also have Mantas Povilauskas, ISM alumnus and Facebook regional partner director at HTT Pool. Good evening, Mantas. Did I introduce you correctly?
Good evening. Yes, that is correct. I know it's a mouthful. Sorry for that.
Okay, again, thank you for joining, and let's jump into the discussion. Recent years have been disrupting in terms of consumer behavior, bringing challenges and opening new opportunities. Many companies took the advantage of the situation and experienced spectacular growth with doing the digital marketing, let's say, in the right way. If you haven't noticed, there was a pandemic. Less people were outside looking at billboards. They were forced into the internet. So Vatroslav, if I may, let's start with you. You have been consulting businesses on digital marketing strategies for more than 15 years now. How could you summarize the last few years in terms of digital marketing? How things have changed? What is the new normal now?
Thank you very much for the question. Once again, I feel really comfortable in this distinguished company here with colleagues who are ISM alumni, now digital marketing professionals, and I'm pretty sure they will agree that we are working in one of the most interesting and dynamic industries nowadays. And many things are going on, so it's quite difficult to stress certain events that happened in the last few years. So many things are going on simultaneously, and we are facing a lot of challenges and also a lot of opportunities. As you said in the beginning, a lot of things changed when it comes to consumer behavior. And this, of course, for us marketers means many changes in the way how we interact with consumers, how we conduct our business, how we manage procurement. So practically every aspect of business is disrupted digitally nowadays. We usually say that marketing was disrupted among the first because we are dealing with customers directly. So we were forced to go through digital transformation in 2000s or even before 2000s. Nowadays, all other aspects of business are following this, and we have a quite different role as marketers in companies. So if I would have to stress certain things that are most interesting, dynamic, or something that really changed in the last few years, I would choose three things. First of all, we are living in the times when we experience convergence between something that we call non-digital and digital marketing. So today we are slowly try to walk away from the term digital marketing, because nowadays we fully understand, of course, and it was just a matter of time when these two things will converge, and we take much more consideration about the concepts of consumer decision journey, thinking how consumers go through all interactions with the company, no matter if these interactions are digital or non-digital, and how we align both of the activities. Of course, we still know which tactics are digital and which tactics are not non-digital, and this is how we somehow split the roles, in marketing departments on the client side, of course. But both on the client side and on the agency side, we see that we are talking about marketing, and we are all marketers, and we have to align all these activities together. So thinking about consumer decision journey beyond just digital, and also moving towards something that we call omni-channeling, not thinking that we are communicating through different channels, but how these things interact with each other. So consumers should feel seamless consumer experience. So this would be, I think, one thing that we are experiencing. It's going on for some time now. And I think this is definitely something that we will go through in the next 2-3 years, because there are a lot of technological advancements that let us make this omni-channeling experience really omni-channeling experience. Second thing is that of organic reach. We have to admit that most of organic reach is going slowly away. Not that we don't have opportunities to interact with consumers based on great ideas in content, building the community, strengthening the loyalty loop in this consumer decision journey. But today, platforms have consolidated. They become much stronger. They're very important intermediary between the clients and consumers. So you need skills to manage this. You need a lot of even technical skills today in marketing in order to understand how to reach consumers through these systems. And finally, minding the topic of today's meeting and discussion, we have these new roles on a client side. So one of them is definitely growth marketer or growth hacker. We have a customer experience manager or YP for customer experience. So we have these new cool titles that actually are marketing positions. These people are marketers, but they're focused on certain aspects of marketing that require creativity, they require understanding of technology and understanding of consumers and the society as well. So customer experience expert will take into account all touch points with the brand, product, company, and everything that is offered. Growth hacker or growth marketer will focus on strategies that ensure growth, they will combine data, technology, and marketing creativity together to increase the KPIs and work on a certain growth tactics. But at the end of the day, all of them have to be, I would say, supervised or oversighted by somebody who is CMO or VP of marketing, somebody who understands and sees the big picture, because all of these specific areas have to contribute to the overall success of the company. There are many other things that could be mentioned, and I'm pretty sure my colleagues from industry will fill the gaps when it comes to these things that are happening.
Thank you, Vatroslav, for such a great introduction. As an academic, I guess you are taught to speak in increments of 45 or 90 minutes, and you can easily take over. So thank you for that. Difficult question for Mantas to add something to it, because Mante, you have almost a decade of international experience working in Lithuania and Asia with such renowned companies like Nestle, IKEA, BMW, among others. So what could you add on the post-pandemic, let's say, digital consumer, how he or she is different from a few years ago?
There's quite a few changes. To be fully transparent, right? At HTT Pool, I'm leading the Meta partnership, or previously known as Facebook. So in regards to that, I've been following in terms of what the company is doing, what the company has been struggling with in terms of how is this transitioning, right? So I very much relate to what Vatroslav sort of mentioned when it comes to these new positions like customer experience expert, which is crucial right now, maybe not because of the pandemic. I will share on that a little bit soon. And the growth marketer, which if nowadays, I remember 5 years back, you would have your contact would be calling and it would show, oh, so marketing specialist is calling you, right? Right now, it's always growth marketers that are calling you and asking sort of for advice. And then that's sort of there's definitely a dynamic shift when it comes to marketing as a team, marketing as a structure in regards to that. And maybe one thing to add operationally, more and more, you have to deal with people who are sometimes named chief revenue officer. Previously, before the pandemic, a lot of the revenues would actually come from a mixed batch, right? And right now, because of the convergence, because of everything, how we're going, much more of that is being driven through digital, or being driven through online, or at least the metrics, the numbers, the statistics, the revenue accounting. So sort of that is trying to be pulled out, right? Now, that being said, pandemic did make a sort of a dent in our society, right? When it comes to that, I could sort of boil it down, and this is really, really simplifying it, right? But to boil it down, I would say this. We got locked down. We couldn't do the things that we wanted to do, so we switched to online, right? So we started doing things more online, spend time more there. And with that, as a consequence, we figured out new things. We found new hobbies, we found new platforms, new tools, new areas, new medias where to spend our time in. And sort of that had an impact overall in terms of how the world is looking right now. And the world has never been more confused when it comes to right now. If we're thinking right now, oh, the pandemic is sort of coming to a close, or we're sort of gotten used to it. No. Right now, everyone's panicking because what are we doing? Are we back to normal? Is behavior back to what we had in 2019? Or are we going to stick to what we had in 2020? And the answer is neither. Based on what we observe right now, the answer is neither. We're still in this shift. We're still in this modality of we don't know where we're going to end up with. Some segments and some audiences are moving back, some audiences are staying. So it's going to be really, really difficult to say. Now, when it comes to the other activities, which I have to acknowledge, in regards to what pandemic brought, is nothing compared to the changes that digital overall sort of faced throughout the last 3 years, right? Privacy, that's one. We just managed to get GDPR sorted out before the pandemic, and then privacy online hit. The cookieless environment, the signal-less environment, the iOS things, that made a significant dent in terms of what marketers currently operating right now. And to be fair, I think the most successful marketers nowadays are the ones that are started back in the day, early on, dinosaurs like me, where we didn't have signals. We didn't have a system to rely on and say, hey, I'm just going to feed you that data. You just go and optimize, right? Right now, it's back to square one. It's almost like a digital stone age where not everything is visible. And previously, there was a saying, 50% of my advertising is misspent, right? The good old adage. Right now, it's saying, more than 50% of my digital spend is going somewhere where I cannot see it, right? So essentially, the idea just is not new. It's just that we have to come back to the tools. We have to come back to the struggles and come back to the basics of how we're actually doing digital, right? And I think that's the two struggles, right? So one, figuring out the shift in consumerism or in using digital media. And the second part is actually the changes that the ecosystem brought itself in order to help with privacy.
Amazing. Thank you, Mante. You touched upon a few very interesting points, and I will try to go a little bit deeper into them a little bit later about privacy, about cookieless environment, and so on. But now let's try to talk to Augusta. And we talked about the past a little bit. Where are we now? Let's now start shifting towards the future. So let's talk about 2022 and beyond. What kind of trends and what kind of main influences are taking place now, and how companies should construct great digital strategies in this year and the years to come?
Thank you, Vitas, for the question. I'll try to unfold it bit by bit because it's a very complex question, but a very good one. So first of all, what Patrislav said and what Manta said really gave a very good overview about what has been happening so far, and at least my insight from what I've heard and from what I see working with the clients is that we don't really know what's going to happen next. So, and in order to thrive in the environment where the uncertainty is at this level, we very much rely on machine learning because we don't really know where the consumers are, what are they searching exactly, what should be the bid, and so on. So we really rely on machine learning heavily right now in order to find the best client and focus on the right goals. The other thing, if I reflect, for example, what was happening in the last 3 months of 2021, which was a big time for retail, as you probably know. I hope you also bought something and got a good Black Friday deal. When we were talking about how to prepare for Black Friday, we were looking into the last year, the year before, and so on, and seeing what were the trends. But we also knew that, okay, this was the truth for 2020, but we don't really know what's going to happen in 2022. So the goal of ours is to prepare a good infrastructure in terms of Google Ads. It's a good account structure that is ready to scale and that is constructed in a profitable way. So I would say that, infrastructure that is profitable and ready to scale is super important to have in 2022 and beyond, because of all the changes that we experiencing both in digital ecosystem and just on the global level as a pandemic. And in terms of digital strategies, how to prepare best, I would say one of the things that's I would come back to the basics and say that one of the most important things is to know why are you doing digital and what is the goal of every campaign. So have a clear goal for the campaign, know how you're going to measure the success, and then have a strategy that helps you get there. So if you reach the consistency between the goal, the success metric, and the strategy that you're using, I think you have high chances of succeeding with digital advertising.
Amazing. Thank you, Augusta. And Vatroslav and Manti maybe have something to add to. What macro and micro trends should be taken into account when constructing the digital marketing strategies this year and the years beyond?
I agree with everything what Augusta said, and especially how she emphasized the importance of knowing what you are doing, how you are doing, and how you are measuring. You cannot repeat this enough for people to, of course, take care about this and think about this when they're doing campaigns, no matter if it's just a communication or related to other aspects of marketing. I would also like to add, and also Augusta mentioned it, the importance of transition that e-commerce is going through. So we, of course, have the development of e-commerce for many years now, but what we saw during the pandemic, of course, it's really going fast forward, minding everything what Manta said that we did during the pandemic. And it's really a great opportunity. Most of us who are in the industry, we said, finally, now we have a very strong push and really fruitful environment for disruption and for advancement in e-commerce. And here I think we have to take into account the emergence of the platforms. And there are a lot of platform businesses that were able to develop a very strong intermediaries between, again, companies and consumers. And this is somehow good and bad news for marketers, because on one hand you have the platform, which is an infrastructure which gives you very quick access to the market. On the other hand, you are losing direct contact with the consumers. And I'm old enough to remember that one of the most important arguments to go digital was to go direct to consumer. But of course, we can forget about this today in most situations in most industries. There are certain direct-to-consumer businesses that are very successful, but these are just exceptions that confirm the rule. So today, I think for marketers, it's important to understand the strength of intermediaries platforms in a certain industries, and also to understand how to cooperate with them. So in hospitality industry, you have OTAs, online travel agencies like Booking.com and Expedia and others. In food delivery, you have Volt and Glow and others. So in many industries, you have a strong intermediaries and platforms. And finally, in marketing communication industry, we have a duopoly of Google and Facebook or Meta now. So this is something that you have to take into account, and this brings a lot of changes in ways how you organize your marketing. So for example, many companies decide nowadays to put marketing communication in-house, because if you have to manage practically two platforms or two ecosystems like Facebook and the satellites and Google on the other side, you can do it in-house maybe, and bypass the agency, although it's a different discussion. We will not open this because it's not that easy, not that simple. But I would say understanding the environment and new players and intermediaries. And another thing which I usually say to my students, although you are in digital marketing, you have to understand the society, people, psychology, and the things that are going on. This relates not only to the business administration training, but overall media training, understanding the forces in the world, the things that are going on, because all of this is affected in the way how people are behaving. And then you can easily assess this through digital analytical tools, digital social listening tools, etc. And you can leverage on this.
I couldn't agree more. Look, like we're not going to have a very heated debate here because of all the agreements, but like overall, I would say like we're very much like on par when it comes to the same thing, right? Digital teams inside clients, as well as agencies that are serving the clients, they need to pivot if they haven't, right? They need to shift to a new way of thinking, which is there are now certain skill sets that are missing within the clients or within marketers in general, which we need to fill. A very good example is a customer experience, right? So as I mentioned, customer experience specialist or expert, or what Vatroslav mentioned, right? That person looks at all the touch points of a customer experience. So that just doesn't mean if the button worked nice on the checkout, right? Or if the package came in nice, right? It actually means that everywhere you go onto online medias, you have to have a good experience. You have to make sure that person isn't left behind, right? You have to mitigate that, right? Not everyone understands that. Not everyone understands what is required. Platforms such as Google, platforms such as Facebook or Meta, right? Platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitter, right? All of them are investing more and more of their resources into making sure the environment that they have is actually very conducive to the e-commerce part, meaning it's a safe environment. It's a safe environment for you to ask questions. There isn't any fraudulent e-commerce, and you can actually feel safe in that environment where you're talking. So if you are on that platform advertising, or you see an advertisement on that platform, there's a certain expectation by the consumer that it's actually safe, right? So you as a marketer now have to think in this way, because if you leave a gap on the consumer experience online and you don't mitigate that, and a consumer is not happy and he confronts you to the platform, you might lose your voice on that platform. You might lose the ability to talk on that. A big part in regards to that was different organizations have different names for it, but essentially ad policy teams, which actually focus on strengthening the policies of what you can communicate, what you can't communicate. Things like, maybe comparative analysis, things like promising, perfect results when it comes to health, when it comes to fitness, right? So things like that have been tightening and tightening, meaning you shouldn't overpromise in terms of what you're actually delivering, and you should actually focus on that. So a very big part in that is actually shifting. The other part that I do want to mention is actually focusing the agency specifically have been very good, and especially some of the agencies, wouldn't name them by name, as it wouldn't be fair because I'm working with them, but they have been very good at shifting their service line to the advertisers in terms of educating them on all of these things, but as well as providing them a way to monitor and improve the areas that are maybe not happening that quick. It's not a massive effort, but it's a massive, it's a massive sort of impact when it comes to those brands, to those advertisers, right? So overall, there is some gaps when it comes to the service line in general, but the other big part where I think right now we're struggling, and just to give another sort of idea on the horizon, is the fact that we're seeing a shift in unit economics. What I mean by unit economics is essentially when you're calculating how profitable your business is, lifetime values have been shifted because of how easy it is or more difficult now to get a consumer. Second, the auctions for most of the online bought media have been shifting and changing in terms of pricing. And then the third part is in regards to how impactful are or how competitive are the creativity that you're using, how good your video advertising is. 3 years back, 4 years back, I can clearly say, looking at the advertising space that we didn't have so much competition as we do right now. So unit economics right now are changing. And a lot of advertisers, a lot of marketing departments that had a very solid model are ending up right now recalculating and saying, hey, this isn't really working right now. I need to look at something, how to make sure my revenues, my marketing mix model is actually working.
Okay, thank you for that. A reminder for the audience that you should post the questions in the comment section, because there's only one for now, so keep them coming. Now, Augusta, I want to ask you, let's talk about companies who have, let's say, limited digital presence. Before constructing elaborate, amazing digital strategies, what homework should be done prior to that? Let's start from the basics. Let's say, if you want to move towards digital advertising, what homework should you do?
Very good question. And I think I work with small, medium businesses. So I see a lot of companies that don't necessarily have a big marketing department, a lot of PPC specialists, Facebook, Google. Usually there's a one-person marketing team that does everything. And then on top of that has many more projects like, landing page, conversion rate optimization, and so on. So it can be a difficult task. But the most important thing is what I already mentioned, I think, is to knowing what you're doing, where you want to go. Because as Alice in Wonderland said, if you don't know where you want to go, any path will take you there. Knowing how you're going to measure the success and choosing the right strategy for it. And then on top of that, I think that in terms of how digital advertising is evolving and where we are right now, where we have campaign types with which you can reach all channels at the same time, the barrier to entry into digital is becoming lower and lower. So it's not, you don't need to take, a month-long Google Ads course just to launch your first campaign. You can really do it in a quite simple manner. And what this means to me, if I look into how Google Ads, I work with Google Ads, so I'll stick to Google Ads, not go to anything else, how they were done 5 years ago and how they are done now. It's completely a different story because we no longer do manual bidding, change bids for every keyword. We let algorithms select the keywords that are most relevant and expand the reach and so on and so forth. And I think this means that we now have time finally to move from very nitty-gritty tasks to more bigger picture things and focus on data analytics. That's what Mantas briefly touched upon, how we need to calculate what our customers are worth and so on. Also, we can dedicate more time to creatives and really being an attractive brand for the consumer so that they choose us. So I think this is a good change in digital advertising, and I'm super happy to be in it at the time when this is happening. So if you want to launch, if you are just about to launch your first digital marketing campaign, don't think that it has to be it's not rocket science, so don't think that it is, and try to learn what are the best practices, because these are the instructions written by the engineers that build the products, how to use it in the most efficient way.
If I can add something to Augusta, I think
yes, please.
What you mentioned is brilliant, right? And look, if anyone's watching this and you're kind of like, hey, we haven't really started digital and we want to, my say would be like, just go for it, right? And especially nowadays, the very strong part what Vatroslav mentioned is understanding your consumer. The only way to understand your consumer is to directly send them a signal and see what happens, right? Show them an ad and see what happens, show a result on Google search and see what happens, right? Those are the things that you can start immediately. That doesn't require a lot of things, right? So my idea and my suggestion would be is irrespective of whatever platform, whatever your advertising channel you're using for, just start doing it. And the importance is look precisely at what you've done and what's the outcome. If it's the outcome that you like, continue doing it. If it's not the outcome that you like, skip it, right? Go on to new things, right? But the idea is to keep doing it. And right now, especially right now, because of the shifts, it's actually a much less, I would say, incumbent-based environment. So meaning less strong advertisers have sort of like seized the power and they're sort of leading it. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. So it's quite a good opportunity right now for everyone to start to look at what the outcome is, invest in that knowledge as a brand, invest in that knowledge, in failing and understanding what happened. So in order that you can move on further and succeed with larger advertising budgets.
Amazing. Yes,
sorry,
please.
if I could quickly add one more thing as to what Manta said. When you start seeing the trend, when you start doing things and you start seeing something happening, and when you look some metrics moving up or moving down, ask yourself, why is it happening? If your, let's say, cost per click is rising, ask yourself why. Is it the competition? Could this be the auction? Maybe there are new players in the market and so on. So every day with clients, I talk about supply and demand in the auctions, and I always remember my economics professor, Mike Hutinger, because that's really what the auctions are. It's about supply and demand, and this is why the metrics go up and down. So it's not meant to be perfect or stable. So that's something to keep in mind. So ask yourself questions why stuff is happening.
Great, but Vatroslav, I want to ask you. We've now established some of the basics. Now let's say I know there is no one-size-fits-all solution for all the companies, of course, but maybe you can determine some of the most promising, let's say, tools when planning digital strategies, and also maybe some of the most prominent platforms or where to start, let's say, that maybe one tool or one platform is the best place to start. What could you elaborate on that?
Now, both Augusta and Mantas are waiting what I'm going to say, which platform should be the starting one. But of course, I'm old enough to know that this is a trick question. I'm really enjoying the discussion and the insights from both Augusta and Mantas. And I would like to add to something that they just talked about and also relates to your question, Vitata. So when it comes to starting with digital, Manta said at one point before that we have a certain increase in prices when it comes to media buying in digital because there is more competition, more players, more clients, and this is inevitably something that happens when either industry or a context becomes a mainstream, which is now the case with digital. But still, on the same time, what both Augusta and Manta said, go and experiment because you can do it on the basis of few €100, especially if you are SME. So with a few €100 in markets like Croatian market, for example, where I'm from, and Lithuanian markets, you can do an impact and you can learn a lot. Why something works, why something is not working. And then also think about some basics in marketing. Don't forget about core concepts. So first of all, you have to know that we are still as marketers in the business of creating customers. This is your main job as a marketer in the company. So you are bringing customers. You are the most important ambassador of customers within the company. So, or what we say in a more strict words, economic words, we are generating demand. So this is your job, and now you have new tools that you can use to do this. And when it comes to specific tools that you should work on and develop your skills, so first of all, I would say before going to tools, understand the notion of strategy, business objectives, your marketing objectives, then also some core concepts like segmentation. When we talk about understanding customers, you cannot please everybody with the same campaign. You cannot please everybody with the same content, especially not today. And you don't have to, because you have a lot of opportunities to develop differentiated content and post and messaging and Google ads for every different digital persona, like we like to call it, although we know it's a market segment, but we like these new terms in digital marketing. So you have to understand understand the concept of segmentation. And also don't forget about another very important concept in marketing, which is positioning. So what you are doing and what you are not doing. So who is really your competitor and who actually is playing in the same industry like you, or the same customer group like you, and how you are doing things better than them. Better Google ads, better social posts on Facebook or on Instagram, etc. And then everything else will be more or less clear. When you take the tool like Google Ads, or you take Facebook Business Manager, and then when you are faced with a decision how you will develop your campaign, how you will target your campaign, how you will do creative part, so using the visuals or writing the copy of the ad, then it will be much easier. I think I will say nothing new, that today you need the skills for these two major players when it comes to marketing communication, understanding both tools, how they are working. Yeah, I think it's crucial. If you ask marketing specialists, if you are in the marketing operations, you have to understand all the features deeply. If you are on the management level, you have to understand how they are working and what are their main features, because you have to know how to manage your budget, your strategy, and how you are including these platforms in your communication mix. Regarding other tools, I think there is a broad area of very important tools for every marketing today, and this is different digital analytical tools. So we have tools on one side that are related to the platforms. So we know that Google has Google Analytics, which is an unavoidable tool for today for marketers. Each social media platform have a certain insight tool that helps you understand the audience and the behavior. And you have to go beyond just using the dashboard. So you have to download the Excel file, and then you have to take understand how you can really crunch the numbers and see some new insights through that. So at the end of the day, the most important tool for every marketing is Excel. And this is something that I usually say to my students, and they say, but we choose the marketing specialization because we don't like Excel. I said, wrong, this is your best friend. So also, as I said, besides understanding main platforms and their tools for marketing communication, invest your time and effort to understand the digital analytics tools beyond just using the flashy background, going even deeper, although that is, some people will say, already a pro level, but we are living in a complex times. Marketing is a complex industry today, and you have to be ready to dig deep.
To add something to what Vatroslav said, we were actually joking, saying like, hey, you can send a deadly plague to humanity. We got this. We'll solve it. We'll fix it. Like, kill Excel as a concept, like we're probably dead as a modern society. But like, to add something in regards to the tools, right? So very, very crucial, right? So just the fundamentals and the basics, but also maybe a message, and I'm being biased here and I'm sort of talking more to the larger advertisers here, but look, like if you're looking into tools that can help you, you essentially have a tool budget, or you have tools, that you can use. My number one advice right now is be very cautious right now. There's a massive psyche in regards to trying to find the best tool who can mitigate the damage of iOS 14 and loss of data. There is no magic stick. Like, I have to tell everyone, right? There is no magic stick, magic wand that you can wave and all the data comes back. It won't happen. You just have to accept it. The other part, be very cautious of the tools and how good they are. I've yet to see a tool that actually works when it comes to that. So first of all, what I would say, if you're using Google, if you're using Meta and advertising on Facebook, right? First of all, if you're a larger advertiser, you have a voice, so connect to the representatives, right? Connect to Augustus team, connect to, Facebook representatives here in the Baltics, if it is, it's HTTP pool, right? Connect to them, ask them for their help. Right now, I can tell you that the duopoly has never been more in sync in terms of what we're working on. Both companies are trying to mitigate that, right? They're trying to figure out how to provide more ways to combat this what we call signal-less environment, right? To combat that and provide more and more visibility, more and more resources, right? A lot of the tools over the last year has been developed exactly to combat that. A way to track, you might need some developer, etc. But what's the cost of 1 hour of the developer compared to losing all of the data that's coming, right? So all of that is available. So my number one sort of advice right now, if you're a larger advertiser, and especially if you have a team that's working on it, right, connect to whatever channel you're using, that channel representatives, and say, hey, we need help. How can we improve our data so we can send more signals to the platform to allow AI to optimize and sort of get us what we need? And at the same time, how can we get more visibility? Like the tools that you currently use are good ones. Like they are actually really, really good. If you measure everything for Google Analytics, great. That's the go-to standard, when it comes to global advertisers, right? So the part right now is how can you get more visibility in the platforms that you're using, not necessarily by expanding the tool set that you have, because I would really, really question right now if there is any tool right now on the market available that can fix that other than the platforms themselves.
Right.
Augusta, do you have anything to add? Why?
Only
Google?
that I cannot highlight enough what Manta said about data and what you have behind Google Ads between Facebook advertising is machine learning, and machine learning lives on data. So your goal as an advertiser is to give the best data possible to Google Ads so that it can, or Facebook Ads, to make better predictions about what users to look for and who can convert for your business. So actually what we spend most of the time now with, especially with B2B companies, is finding what is the conversion action, what is the data point that we want to optimize our campaigns for? Because what we usually have, for example, let's say if we take a bank, what usually can be optimized for is a nice button on the website, that you open the website and you exactly know as a user what you need, what you can do there. So for example, fill out an application, and that is the conversion action that most B2B companies have. But then if we optimize just towards that, the algorithm is stupid and smart at the same time. It's smart because it can optimize towards what you want, but it also doesn't look any further, right? So it doesn't have any data, any variables about what is a good quality lead. It only knows what a lead is. It doesn't differentiate between bad and good quality leads. So then we look further into what are the next steps in the customer journey and what most users do before becoming paying customers, and can it be our next conversion action? So it can be quite a complex journey, but just wanted to highlight what Manta said, that having developers, having analysts on the team is super, super important, because they will help you to, will help your business in the long term, because you will have a solid foundation.
I want to continue with you, Augusta. Let's dive deeper about the tracking the progress, let's say. Vatroslav already said, Excel is your best friend. How to keep track, how successful is your campaign? There's a bunch of different platforms. What are the metrics that are useful versus useless? What can you sacrifice and what you should strive for? And since having a lot of tools, is there a place where you can, see the whole picture? Is it the number of likes we're chasing, or is it what? How to track the success of your digital advertising?
Well, first of all, as you probably can already sense, I'm not a fan of overcomplicating things. So what we usually do, and what clients, small, medium businesses that I work with usually have as a source of truth, is either Google Analytics or Google Ads itself. And then what matters really depends on what your campaign goal is. So if you're focusing on achieving a revenue growth target, then you want to look into revenue and how is that growing. And then we don't really care about how many clicks or impressions we got, but what we care about is only revenue and its growth. So I would say really tie your campaign goal to the success metric and see how they are connected. Because if you are focused on revenue, if your overarching goal is revenue growth, but then you're looking into CPC prices as your source of truth, you'll get a very wrong picture, and it will be misleading, and you won't be able to make good decisions for the future.
If I can add something here, look, in regards to how to have that 100% visibility, or to have that one place to have everything, right? I would say, Vatroslav was right. Excel is the best tool when it comes to that. The reason for it being because you can manipulate the data, because you can easily sort of cut down the data, which is not really, helping you, and sort of focus on the parts that are. And the other part that maybe is very, very important to sort of mention is, I really hope right now the craze to store all of the data as a marketer is over. I really hope right now we're focusing on gathering the data that can make us make informed decisions. That's the really important part. You don't need to have all the data. You just need to have the data that supports you to make a decision. Now, with that, I also want to share one thing is sometimes I see marketers who are like, no, we have to have very, good attribution modeling. We need to have 100% or 99%, correctness on that. My question would be why? Like, unless you're doing, a doctorate study on something that's going to change the world, you probably don't need that. What you need is a signal that can be helpful in deciding whether A or B, right? But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be paralyzed, or would advise marketers not to be paralyzed by that and make decisions. Worst case scenario, you make a bad decision, you learn from it. Guess what? 2 weeks later, because you're in digital, you can make a new one or change the strategy because you already had insights, right? So I believe like it's very, very important when talking about the data to have those like correct parts. What are we trying to measure? How are we going to achieve it? What is our goal to sort of see it? And the other part that I wanted to say, Excel is really powerful, especially when you know your hypothesis and what you're searching for it. And if there's any digital marketer that is still junior and is still trying to get that, get those things under, sort of knowledge part, then I would say, ISM is a great school to sort of catch up on that. And maybe you will get a chance to talk to Václav and learn from him and sort of have that in your tool set as sort of, tools that you can use for data analysis.
You can run from Excel, but you cannot hide from it. We have a few very interesting questions from the audience, so I will allow myself to jump to them. Klaidas Petravičius is asking, what data did marketers lose after the GDPR enforcement? Raise your hand if you would like to tackle this one.
Yeah, let me just tackle this one. So look, under the GDPR, you haven't really lost anything if it wasn't illegal, if that makes sense. So essentially, GDPR didn't enforce much onto the advertisers, but what GDPR did is they said, all advertisers now you have to show proof of where they have consent for storing data and how they're going to use that data. And if someone is reaching to them, they should be able to provide answers to them. And that's it. So essentially, it didn't change for all of the companies. It just said, hey, you're a company, you need to make sure everything is clear and the consumer can reach out to you and ask a question. That's it. So actually, it didn't really stop anything. What it did stop is unlawful data storage. So meaning you're storing lots and lots of data for no good reason, just to have it, or you're storing data or you're doing advertising without consent, which sometimes would happen, right? So that has been paused. Other than that, I don't think it actually stopped anything when it comes to GDPR specific change.
Thank you, Mantai. Very good question from Klaidas Gevorkian. A question I was about to ask as well. So one of the hottest topics right now is the world of marketing, or ad tech to be particular, is third-party cookies. Google has announced it will finally disable third-party cookies in Chrome browser by the end of 2023. It would be interesting to hear your opinion on this topic, and what impact will this have on the world of advertising? Will the means or trends of advertising change a lot as a result?
Very good question.
Or Augusta, maybe that's.
I can take this one.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think that the change that is happening is a good one, because although we're working in digital marketing, we're also users and we're also consumers, and we want our data to be safe and to be taken care of properly. So first of all, that's a good change. The other thing that I want to highlight here is that although the change is happening, it doesn't mean that we have to be fearful, or that, I don't know, we now have to, be running, being scared and thinking that now digital is over and what are we going to do next? So what you need to do as a marketer, and what we work on with the clients, is adjusting the measurement, adapting the measurement to this privacy first world. So if you just Google privacy focused measurement, Google Ads, you'll see the whole playbooks of what solutions you need to implement, like consent mode, enhanced conversions, in order for the data to for the data to be collected, and for not to lose optimization of your campaigns. So nothing to be fearful for, but something to make time for, to implement the additional solutions that will help to restore the data that is being lost. And that's it. And digital will continue.
And also, if you're also very, very interested in depth in terms of these solutions, because these are new solutions when it comes to privacy-based environments, they have been being developed for close to a decade now. There's some that are currently active, like that have been for 6 or 8 years in development. So what I would suggest, if you're really interested in topics, IAB Europe as an organization, or IAB in general US as well, they have a good knowledge base when it comes to that, good sort of guidelines and rules for all advertisers and for all markets in terms of how to tackle that. So the concept isn't new. Actually, it's it's just a little bit of a shift. It's a little bit of a change to our environment as well. But other than that, like I agree with what Augusta said, there's quite a few things that marketers can do. They just need to follow up and refresh if they don't know anything, apart from the cookie environment of Measure.
Thank you. But Vaslav, maybe you have something to add to that.
Yes, these are two great questions and two great answers. And I think as a conclusion, we also have to think about what the GDPR and other changes in the legal environment is actually bringing on the consumer side. So we are not losing the data, as both Mantas and Augusta correctly said, and there are different technologies that can ensure that we have the data, that we have a consent to be used, and we will still have opportunities to micro-target, to have a great insight into consumer habits and behavior in digital. So companies and platforms will adapt to the new legal environment, and again, everything will more or less work as it was working before. The thing what happened, and something that we should not neglect, is the awareness of consumers about privacy and sharing the data, which also affects the behavior, not only in terms of they are thinking what kind of data they are sharing and should they do that. On the other hand, they are more aware about their rights, which is in general a good thing. I think even this is a good thing for marketers as well, because we have a more informed consumers, and if they give us their consent for something, they are aware of this, and you avoid the possibility to create a dissatisfaction and also starting different social media storms or anything which can damage the reputation of a company. Since I'm also involved in a research project in Lithuania, which is commissioned by the Lithuanian Science Council, we are exploring the willingness to disclose private data from the consumer side. And we see the rise in privacy concerns. We see more and more people leveraging on the right to be protected, to be deleted, as we usually say, and not to share the data. But on the other hand, we don't see any strong disruption when it comes to having opportunities to collect the data from the customers with their consent and then using this in marketing when it comes to targeting, profiling, etc. So we as marketers should be aware that now people know more about it, and this is what I think really it's a good thing with GDPR, that it brought awareness about these topics, and of course it makes sure that everybody is dealing with the data in a proper way. So industry will adapt. We will still have the data, but we have to take into account these changes in technology on one side, but also in the perception of consumers on the other side.
Okay, thank you for that. Two quick questions. Augusta, since your job scope includes working with Google Ads, what are the advantages of using Google Ads platform instead of any other ad tech platform, for example, Adform Flow?
Very good question. I'm not super familiar with the Adform Flow, but what I can tell you about Google Ads, the main benefit of using Google Ads is that it's an intent-based platform. So as what I already mentioned, what sits behind Google Ads is the machine learning that has full visibility into the user's journey, what are they searching, what intent they might have, and then show your ad to the person that has the highest intent to buy from your business. So I would say highlight the intent part, and as that's probably the main differentiator. Okay. I hope that answers the question. Quick question, quick answer.
Hope so. And Lucas has a question. What do you think about smart bidding and smart creative solutions? Is it worth it, or manual way is more accurate? I guess Augusta is more qualified for that, or Mantas, I don't know. Go ahead.
I think we can all answer this question, and many tests have been done comparing manual CPC with smart bidding. Smart bidding always outperforms. So I would say go with smart bidding because the algorithm, once again, machine learning has more visibility, has more signals to evaluate and understand what intent the user has, have. So your goal as a marketer is to give a good conversion action for the campaign and then set the bidding strategy that relates to that goal. So if you want revenue, go with value-based bidding strategies, not to maximize clicks, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I have to agree. Look, like whatever smart or whatever, the terminology might be on the platform when it comes to creatives or, approach to the structure of your advertising campaigns, use it, try it. If it's not doing the revenues or the results that you require, and you actually sent enough signals to the platform, let's be fair, right? If it's not working, then you can try to do better. Like I would always try to do that, right? The other important part, which I have to distinguish, and it's kind of a trend, and my colleague Aidis sort of talked on one conference, Aidis Dalikas, and you guys to one other conference, said, look, like there are a lot of best practices out there. These platforms actually have a lot of tons of data, and they can distill those practices into very actionable things. Try them out first. Like when it comes to creative or bidding, there's the optimized and automated way, use it. The other one is, the best practices when it comes to it. Yes, everyone is using it. Yes, that's the reason why everyone is using it. They work, right? But the other part, if you're right now thinking, I'm not going to go the way where everyone has been going, I'm going to do my own way, I'm going to figure out something else. Well, guess what? It's actually quite hard. And it's a little bit like inventing the Edison bulb, right? It will require you 1,000 attempts to fail before you actually get to something good. So if you right now exceeded all the smart bidding, all the optimized, ways of structuring your advertising, and then you exceeded all the best practices, by all means, go ahead, try something new, invent something. But before then, I really advise sort of the people to first use the best approach and sort of whether that's automated or the best approaches, best strategies that are out there, and give them a try, go through all of them before trying to invent something new.
Great. We are running out of time. So if I may ask for a few more words of encouragement for our spectators, how to overcome the challenges that they will be faced in the present and in the future. So some closing remarks from each and every one of you. And if we could start with Vetroslav, please. Do you have something to sum up what we talked about and some some tips or encouragement for the future for our listeners?
As a professor, of course, I will say that you have to know things before you start doing them, although you can learn a lot on the way and you can experiment a lot. But of course, it helps when you understand the basics. So being the marketer, you need a basic marketing training to understand, as I already said, the main concepts, and then you can very nicely build on different tools and different tactics that you can use in digital marketing. On this way, what you can do better than before, you can, as we said already, experiment, you can compare, you can measure, and at the end of the day, you will have your optimal mix of activities. And of course, when you are developing your career, for example, in digital marketing, I usually say when you are young and still you can work long hours and you can take a lot of stress, go on the agency side first. See how it works. You will work with different clients, different industries. You will have the best parties. This is also something which goes with the marketing career, but you will really learn a lot how things are working. You will learn cutting edge tools and cutting edge approaches. And then at a certain period of time, don't forget to switch on the client side to live a normal life. So I know this is a little bit maybe unorthodox advice. Maybe you haven't expected this, but I think it's an important career path for the marketer. And definitely, we are living in one of the most interesting times for marketers today. And as a conclusion, we usually say, if you are not having fun while doing marketing, you are not doing it right. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Vetroslav. Augusta, few closing remarks.
Super good points what Vetroslav said, especially about having fun. I think that's important for everyday life in general. But I would add from my side, in terms of digital advertising and do campaigns, rely on machine learning, learn how to use it, learn how to guide the machine. You guide the machine with good data and good goals. And then don't overcomplicate things, start doing it and learn as you go from the data that you gather, and ask yourself questions why things are happening the way they are happening.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Monte, we will give you the last words.
So if you're still here, I mean, congratulations. You're one of the patient ones in the universe of 3-second attention span. But overall, I would very much agree with my colleague said, right? If you're still curious and out there, take a course, like do a, post-bachelor studies, join the university, like get that knowledge in. The fundamentals matter and they will carry you through whatever happens in the ecosystem. If you want to be as a marketer, like safe, just learn the fundamentals, just go through academia. It will be great. Well, trust me, it will carry you throughout anything that might happen. Now, in regards to how do you weather the current things that are happening, right? So number one, experiment, try things, especially if you haven't tried the already good practices, the best practices, the best approaches, etc., the working things, try them out first. Like that's really, really important, and see if the outcome that you expected is the outcome that you received, right? Just try that, right? That's really, really important. The next part is, in regards to the best practices, reach out to your channel, representatives, whether that's local channels, whether that's Google, whether that's Meta for Facebook or Instagram, right? Reach out to them, ask what is the best strategy? How can we do this, right? Require agencies to guide you as well, if you have an agency sort of to do that. Get that. The second part is data. Focus right now, how do you maybe not even get the data, but how can you provide the data to the platform so they can optimize on your behalf? If you can do that, if you can sort of get that those best practices, implement the tools currently available through any platform, we have all of it, right? If you can implement them, that's going to take you a long, long way. So my recommendation right now is be proactive, reach out to the channels, learn about what you can do as a marketer in terms of to have better visibility and to have better campaigns, and that will carry you through whatever we have in the next year, this year, and the academics and knowledge will carry you through whatever crisis we have in the next 5 or 10 years.
Hallelujah for that. Thank you so much. Thank you to the listeners, both on ISM Zoom platform, and thank you also Delphi TV for helping to spread the word. Follow ISM on social media if you liked our show. It is not the last one. Join the ISM Mastermind Cycle, the future events, if you want to learn about the timing. Yeah, as I said, follow us on social media. If you're thinking about master studies at ISM, drop us an email at msc@ism.lt or on social media platforms. Now is the early admission period, so you can have great financing opportunities and no admission fee. And lastly, of course, thank you to all the speakers for devoting your 1 hour of your life for us and for the listeners. So thank you to Dr. Vatroslav Shkare, Associate Professor at ISM and Marketing Consultant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Huge thank you to Augusta Tamulita, ISM alumna and Associate Account Strategist at Google. Thank you for joining, Augusta. Thank you for inviting. And thank you, Mantas Pavelauskas, ISM alumnus and Facebook Regional Partner Director at HTT Pool. Thank you, Monty.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please reach out.
Okay. Thank you for joining. My name is Vytautas, and see you next time.